Chapter 11, containing a great deal of shouting. Jemmy was struck dumb. Did Prince Brat have sand for brains? Gah! Didn't he realize he could snatch up his crown and go free? It doesn't please me to take orders from common rascals, Prince Brat said coldly. It would please me to shake the teeth out of your confined face, replied Hold-Your-Nose Billy. You may live in the castle, but you're only a whipping boy. Do as we say. I'll do what I choose, and I choose not to run your errands. Jemmy leaped up and gave the prince an angry flash of eyes. Jemmy from the streets gets these stubborn fits, he said, contrary as a mule. Let me have a word with him. I'll whip the mullishness out of him, exclaimed Cutwater, lurching forward. Prince Brat dodged out of his grasps, and a sour smile crossed his face. I'll tear up your vile message the moment I'm gone, and keep the crown for myself. Hold-Your-Nose Billy caught Cutwater's unpraised arm. Hold off! There's something in what he says. You think he's angling for a share of the reward, Billy? Likely is. The greedy little snipe, Cutwater bleated. How much do you reckon we can spare? This calls for private words. Let's parley. Follow me. The moment the outlaws ducked out of the hut, Jemmy turned on his companion. Prince Blockhead, you should wear your crown to fend off woodpeckers. Impostor! How dare you insult me? You're enough to give the devil himself fits. Haven't I so muddled their brains they want to turn you loose, and you reward me with a royal squawk? The prince had crossed the wicker basket and snatched up an uneaten apple tart. He gobbled it down. I'll return to the castle when I'm ready, when I choose, and not a moment before. Jemmy's eyes narrowed sharply. He couldn't fathom what was stirring the prince's mind. Could he for once be concerned for someone other than himself? It's not me you think you're protecting, is it? You? Knowing they'll knock the daylights out of me soon as they find out I tricked them? The prince shrugged. You're quick, boy. You'll think of something. I've already thought it. Once you're up and gone, I'll slip away out in the forest. It'll be harder to catch than a flea. But I'm not leaving, said the prince firmly. Gah! But why? Is it your pa you're afraid of? Is that why you won't go back? The prince scoffed. He won't miss me. Course he will. Let him wait, and mind your own affairs, whipping boy. It is my affair. Do you reckon you're out on a lark with murderers outside? The murderers shuffled back into the hut. Hold-Your-Nose Billy fixed Prince Brat with a hairy smile. Never let it be sung about that me, and Cutwater ain't generous to a fault, lad. We'll share out with you a bucketful of golden jewels. No, replied the prince flatly, as if he'd been offered a bucketful of coal. Don't run me out of patience, warned the huge outlaw. The prince remained defiant. I'm staying. Hold-Your-Nose Billy ripped off his leather belt. I'll lash a bit of sense into your head. Jemmy saw that Prince Brat was going to shift his ground. You don't need my whipping boy to get into the castle. There's a better way. Do say, exclaimed Cutwater doubtfully. My horse, remarked Jemmy. There's your messenger, sirs. Hold-Your-Nose Billy gave a snort. Pah! That fine beast? We've been afoot since our skin-poor horse turned his heels up. We need a mount in our line of work. Nitwits, exclaimed Jemmy, as if his own princely patience were at an end. With rings on your fingers and gold in your pockets, you can take the roads like gentlemen. You'll be traveling about in fine coaches. But first, you've got to lay hands on that treasure. Cutwater made a sound through his nose like a pitch pipe. With that horse outside? One of the king's own. A horse can always find his way home, can't it? That fine beast will make for the castle stables, note and crown. No questions asked. Chapter 12, wherein Jemmy is betrayed. With a gleeful chuckle, Hold-Your-Nose Billy dropped the ransom note and the golden crown into a dirty linen sack. When he knotted the sack to the saddle, he turned to Cutwater. Soon as I'm within a squint of the castle, I'll turn the beast loose. Guard our prisoners. I'll tie him up, Cutwater wheezed. giving his heavy partner a foot up into the royal saddle. From the doorway, Jemmy watched Hold-Your-Nose Billy vanish into the tangled maze of tree limbs and brambles. Then he glanced about at the bare furnishings, the hanging ropes of garlic bulbs, the bed straw, the chest of golden goods. He'd need some trickery to escape. The prince fixed him with a smirk. "You're clever, all right, but a common dunce all the same. Gah! A cartload of gold and jewels, the ruffians would have been content with a mere jingle of coins." Jemmy's eyes swung back into the bed straw. There was his escape. "A cartload of moonshine," he said. "It'll never be forked over." "I'm the prince. Papa will never have to pay it." "Papa will have to pay it." Jemmy began burrowing like a barn mouse under the moldy straw. "Not a bit, he won't. Papa will foam at the mouth." Jemmy was disappearing limb by limb under the straw. "Think again. It'll be clear as water, the note's a scrambly-witted fake. Papa'll keep me under lock and key after this. It won't fool a soul, that a note. How could you have written it? Everyone in our castle knows that you can't so much as sign your own name." "I never needed to before." "It's me that's in the soup. I'll catch it for your mischief running away, and I'll catch it again when the tutor claps eyes on the handwriting. He'll say, 'Jemmy, this is Jemmy trying to line his own pockets.' Your paw'll scrag me with his bare hands, so I'll be obliged if you'd help me nip out here." "I promise you my protection," announced the prince with sudden generosity. "Jemmy protects himself," said the whipping boy. "When the play guy, Cutwater, comes to tie us up, tell him I slipped out the door. Soon as he bounces off after me, I'll make a break for it. You'd leave me alone with the cutthroats?" Before Jemmy could answer, he heard the sharp squeak of the door. He held his breath. "Lads, you won't mind if I truss ye up like a Christmas goose?" There came a sudden pause, and Jemmy's heart began to thump. "Where's the prince?" Cutwater snapped. Jemmy heard the Prince Brat answer without the slightest hesitation. "Him? Over there, under the straw." Chapter 13. The Chase. A thoroughbred of the streets, Jemmy acted on instinct. He didn't wait to be nabbed. In a burst of straw, he shot up and made a leap for the door. Cutwater, startled, lost the merest breath of time. But it was enough. Jemmy flung open the door and ran. His long arms outstretched, Cutwater lurched after him, and Prince Brat followed. Jemmy vanished into the wild green tangle. He jumped a great fallen log, ducked under a low-hanging branches, and like a rabbit made sudden changes in direction. He could hear Cutwater close behind, breathing like a bellows. "I'm on your tracks. Stop before I get aggravated with you, Prince." Jemmy covered the ground at full tilt. Leaves crackled under his feet. "Gah!" he thought. He might as well be leading a confounded parade for all the noise he was making. He reached a small clearing and half jumped out of his skin. Sniffing near the skeleton white roots of an upturned hollow tree stood a wild beast. A bear. Jemmy would have preferred Cutwater's own company, but before he could find his legs, the hairy beast took flight. It went crashing away to Jemmy's left. Jemmy got his breath back. Then, almost without thinking, he dove into the hollow of the dead tree and snugged himself in. Moments later, he caught the merest glimpse of Cutwater cupping an ear. Turning on his heels, the rattled-boned man gave a shout. "Practically got you by the hind leg, pesky prince." Jemmy let out a small sigh of relief. Cutwater would have a mighty surprise if he caught that bear by the hind leg. As the sounds of the chase grew fainter, Jemmy crawled out of the hollow root. The sun was now high enough to send down smoky rays of light through the treetops. Which way was the river? And then he saw Prince Brat, his face lobster red from running, at the edge of the clearing. "Unfaithful servant," he protested, glaring hard at Jemmy. Until this moment, Jemmy hadn't had a moment's pause for anger, but now fury shot into his eyes. "Curse this blabbered tongue, hateful prince! You betrayed me!" "You'd have deserted me without care." Jemmy bristled. "Ain't it me they think is the prince? And if you hadn't pointed me out under the straw, Cutwater would have flown off to pick up my tracks. And we could have crept away dead easy. I wouldn't be running my lungs out. The prince pondered this for a moment. He nodded. Then I forgive you. Jemmy was speechless for a moment. Forgive me? Don't trouble yourself, my good and loyal prince, and get yourself another whipping boy. But I have not dismissed you from your service, said the prince calmly. I dismiss myself, Jemmy fired back. I'll get where I'm going, and you can find your own way back to the castle. I'll go with you. Not likely. Jemmy turned to the right and beat his way back into the foliage.